It was a warm summer day over the weekend, and my brother, my sister, and I decided to go to the park with our two best friends. The park was close to where we lived, and it was in an isolated area surrounded by woods. Parents would sit on the picnic tables not too far from the playground while they watched their kids play. We met our friends there, and we played on the playground, and then we played tag with some of the other kids. While everyone else was on the playground, my friend and I wanted to go explore into the woods. We didn't ask our parents first because we thought it would be okay. We started hiking and we discovered a stream. My friend and I love science and rocks and minerals, so we started searching for cool rocks. We continued exploring until we thought we heard something or someone walking to the woods because the leaves were crunching. We thought it was an animal, so we looked around but didn't see anything or anyone, so we continued exploring. And as we made it further into the woods, I got an uncomfortable feeling that somebody was watching us, so I asked if we can go back to the playground. My friend said sure, because our parents would worry if they didn't see us. We hiked back and continued playing on the playground. And as we were swinging on the swings, we saw a little boy wander off into the woods to explore. We noticed a car parked on the other side of the woods, and a guy came out from behind a tree and closer to the little boy. It looked like the guy was trying to lure the boy into coming with him. The boy started to go with him, and the guy tried to grab him, but just then his parents noticed and called for him to come back. The guy that wanted to kidnap him took off running into the woods and drove away quickly. One of the parents got a picture of the kidnapper, though. My friend and I were freaked out because we were in the same spot as the guy. He could have been hiding behind a tree watching us the whole time, or took off with one of us running. Thank goodness we were both okay, and one of the parents noticed and saved the boy from getting kidnapped. After that, my family and friends all went home. We decided never to go back to that park ever again. One of the first jobs that I ever had was an after-hours janitor job at Walmart. I worked from 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. when the manager got there. Now, I was typically with two others, but it varied, and a few nights I was alone. One of the only things I found creepy was the warehouse downstairs. It was the same size as the actual Walmart. We had to go down there to grab the soap to run the machine we used to wash the floors. We really needed to, as there were a few left out for us. One night I was there alone. I had used all the floor cleaner and had to go down to the warehouse to get some soap. It already had an eerie vibe to it. It was pretty dimly lit, honestly. I walked over to grab some soap. This was around 2 in the morning, so I still had quite a bit more time. I was grabbing the soap when I heard echoes and footsteps. I was the only one there. I walked out of the aisle to see what looked like to be a man in his mid-20s. I said, "Who are you?" I yelled at him, and I was shivering. He said his name was Josh. This was his first night on the job. He was told to look for the other worker to get some assistance, and was told that the warehouse was where we got the soap, and also where the break room was. I was creeped out, but he seemed legit. He knew the manager's name and answered all the questions I asked him. We started working and everything was going well. He took an hour break at 5, pretty much to get out of work early. Said he would see me tomorrow night. The clock hit 6, and soon after my manager arrived. I asked him why he didn't tell me about Josh. He looked confused. "The new night worker?" I said. What he told me made the hairs on my neck stand up. "There's no new night employee. You were working alone tonight." "Was somebody here with you?" he said. The police report was filed, but to my knowledge, nothing really came up. I quit the job the next day and never returned to that Walmart again. Quite a few years ago, long before my haunted restaurant days, I did in-home care for the county that I lived in. That particular job entailed me traveling from one client's home to another pretty much all day long. I met the peeping Tom of the story at my second client's apartment that day. He was introduced to me by my client as the maintenance man for the apartment complex that she lived in. He would just do basic handyman fix-it duties in the tenants' apartments, as well as the yard work around the small complex. I say small complex because that apartment complex was only 2 stories tall and only had about 20 or so apartments in it. On the day that the maintenance man and I were introduced, everything seemed fine and normal. No red flags as of yet, anyways. My client and I sat and talked with him over lunch, since she was a sweet person and he had come over on short notice to fix her leaking faucet. He told us a little about his wife and kids and how much they love playing outdoors on his expansive property in their new side by side ATV. He even jokingly said that if we were ever in near his neck of the woods, that I should stop by and meet his family and take a ride on his side by side to tour his woodsy property with its beautiful views if I wanted. Fast forward to a few weeks later, when I needed to hire him at my new house to do some emergency plumbing because my normal plumber was away on vacation at the time. My client agreed that he would be a great fit for the job, and plus he really needed the extra money. She gave me his business card, and I called him up to schedule him the next morning. He showed up on time and did the work, although I found it to be honestly a little bit janky, if I may say so. What he did worked, it was just that he didn't even bother to go get the right parts to make the plumbing permanent, so I ended up with sort of a long-term, temporary fix. Everything was fine after he did the job. He left still showing no red flags or anything, until later that month. That is when he began calling me for really weird reasons. Like he would just want to know if I was working with that client the next day or whatever. He wanted to know that because, according to him, he needed to do some work she had called him about, but he was unable to reach her on the phone. Weird, I thought, especially since I thought he had worked in her apartment complex almost every weekday. So why couldn't he just knock on her door or to let the manager know? I brushed it off though, considering I had just moved into that house and I had a lot of work to do on it still to make it more livable and comfortable. But soon enough, the calls came more and more frequently over the next couple of weeks, until I woke up with 17 voicemails from him one morning. Enough was enough with that, I decided right then, and so when I went to work for the client the next day, I showed her all the voicemails. She was absolutely appalled at seeing them all, and she immediately called the apartment's manager and informed them of the situation of the maintenance man and I. I would be lying if I said that it wasn't totally awkward after my client made that phone call, but unfortunately, it was. And my client made that phone call. At first, I was able to just simply ignore him and go on about my job duties as per usual, but I wouldn't be writing this if that was all there really was, now would I? The calls began to really amp up, and eventually, they turned into really disgusting texts. Some of the texts were angry, and some were almost sexual in nature. They were all still nonetheless quite creepy indeed. To my great dismay, though, I thought I was beginning to hear strange noises outside of my isolated house some nights. At first, I figured that was just some local wildlife, which we got a lot of out in the country where I was. But since I happen to know a little bit of tracking, I got bored one late afternoon and decided to go out exploring and tracking a little. I was horrified to find several human, man-sized 13-inch outsole boot prints all around my house and field. I brought out my little tape measure just to make sure, and sure enough, it looked as though someone had been traipsing around my outside of my house and outside my bedroom window. I just knew deep in my gut that that was the strange sounds I had been hearing late at night outside. I went out to the local electronics store the very next day after I got off work and purchased a motion sensor night vision game camera for still pictures and a small night vision live camera for outside that I could view on my TV. I didn't see anything at all for the first few minutes, but that all quickly changed. I began to hear the faint and then familiar sounds of light footfalls outside. Then, to my absolute and complete and utter horror, I watched on my TV as a man in a dark hoodie walked right past my camera. I instantly froze, not knowing what to do. I didn't dare move a muscle or even breathe as I listened to him creep past outside my window. In my mind, my heartbeat must have been audible to him as he slipped past outside. I don't know why I didn't call the cops right then and there, but I figured he was probably already gone since all had gone silent outside once again. It wasn't until about 2 weeks later when I returned home from work to find both my front security screen that I had locked standing open along with my previously locked front door open that I was forced to call the police finally. They sent an officer out, but all he could really do was look at the footprints outside my bedroom window and take a report. Fortunately, the handyman was fired shortly after that due to unknown reasons to me, and all the weird activity outside my house at night stopped. If I learned even one thing from the whole scary experience, it was that you should always watch who you invite out to your house, especially if you're a single female.